Hello, chess friends, and welcome to Zarov's Chess Channel, and welcome to the Tata Steel Masters tournament in 2020 in Wijk, Netherlands. So it's already round 4. We have the clash, Jorden van Foreest against Magnus Carlsen. Jorden van Foreest, I think, played a great tournament so far. He's really sort of a dark horse of this tournament. He has 2 wins and only 1 loss, so he's playing really attractive chess. I think he plays fairly aggressively, and he has lost a game also in an aggressive line of the Sicilian. So he's playing really some great games, I think, and in the continuation of the tournament, I'm gonna follow his games for sure. On the other hand, Magnus Carlsen, I think for him it was one of his most important chess games in his career, because today he had the opportunity to break Sergei Tiviakov's record in this undefeated streak. So he hasn't been defeated now for 110 games. So with this game, Magnus Carlsen can be undefeated for 111 games. So it's an incredible accomplishment when we see that Magnus Carlsen's average rating in this streak was around 2730. On the other hand, Sergei Tiviakov's average rating of opponents was 24 and 40. I think I've read some articles now about that. I think I'm correct. So this is a huge accomplishment. Magnus playing all the time against Fabiano, Caruana, Hikaru Nakamura, Vishy Anand, Levan Aronian, and many of these top grandmasters. And I think Levan Aronian had the best opportunity to win a game against Magnus Carlsen. I've analyzed the game. I'll show you the link of that game in this after this game, so you can watch it also. I think in that particular game, Magnus had a lost position, but Levan Aronian played inaccuracy, which led into a drawish position. So let's see the game here with the white pieces. Jorden van Foreest, we have e4, e5, played by Magnus, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, the the Italian game, knight to f6, and now after knight to g5, we have the Fred lever attack, attacking immediately the weakness on f7. Now we have d5, we have e takes d5, and now knight to a5. This knight to d5 idea leads into a complicated line. After knight takes f7, king takes f7, queen to f3, and king to e6, knight to c3. It's really an aggressive line, so many games have been played. So that's why here in this line, Magnus played the normal line, knight to a5, attacking the bishop on c4, bishop to b5 here. But there is, I think, also a very interesting line. I tried sometimes when I play here the Italian game, I try to move b5. Here after bishop takes b5, you have queen to b5 attacking the bishop, bishop takes c6, queen to c6. At least you're continuing here with the game with the bishop pair. We have now even the possibility to play bishop to b7, aiming on this b2 square. So these are the options for black, continuing with this fast development with also the bishop pair. I think it's playable for both sides. So in the game after knight to a5, we have bishop to b5, c6, still common theory, d takes c6, b takes c6, and now bishop to d3. If you try bishop to e2, it could be passive because of this potential move e4 here, so maybe h6 can be played. But now after knight to f3, you see we have the possibility to play the move e4, and it's very dangerous already for white. You have several choices. You can maybe try knight to e5. After bishop to d6, you can try maybe d4. Okay, there is after e takes d3, knight takes d3. It's again playable, but this knight is good, but it's not on f3. You would love to have it on f3 because it's protecting this h2. So in some occasions black will try something like queen to c7, and black simply relies on these 2 diagonals. This is the main idea of black. Black is a pawn down, but with a huge piece activity and some potential attacks against white's king after casting. So after the move bishop to d3, we have a knight to d5 played by Magnus, attacking the knight to f3, and now bishop to d6. Again, Magnus is preparing this move, which aims here against this h2 pawn. The possibility is here to somehow push the pawn on e4. It has to be prepared, of course, with the move f5, e4, but it's really dangerous for white, because then if the bishop opens, if the position opens for both of these bishops, I think black has a huge attack. So now Jorden van Foreest, I think, makes a slight inaccuracy. He played the move knight to c3. There is one problem about this move, because here after castling, like Magnus did, and bishop to e2, we have the opportunity to play the move f5, and after something like d3, there is now a very cool line that you could play, I think, e4, attacking the knight after d takes e4, knight takes c3, b takes c3, and now f takes e4. Knight to d4 is possible, of course, but now queen to f6, attacking this f2 weakness immediately. And after castling, I think black has a good game, because now the pawn structure is weakened here. These 3 pawns are basically 2 pawns, because this is a double pawn. It's really a huge weakness in white position, and still we have the possibility to push the pawn on c5. But the more important thing is that we have now the pawn on the 4th rank, which is a huge space advantage, and that's why here after this move, castling, bishop to e2 played by Jorden van Foreest, you see how problematic this knight to c3 was, because a better way is to proceed here with the move castling, instead of this knight to c3. Castling, after castling, we have the opportunity to play rook to e1. Now this f5 doesn't work, because the e5 is hanging, so it's a huge difference, I think. Still, you need maybe to have a defensive setup here somehow, but f5 so far is not possible for black, so that's the huge difference in this particular line. So after this move, knight to c3, after castling, you see bishop to e2, and now f5 was Magnus' possibility, but Magnus played knight to f4, which was also Magnus' inaccuracy, because here Jorden van Foreest simply castled. After bishop to g4, we have d3, liberating this diagonal for the bishop. We have knight takes e2, because the threat was to take out simply this very well placed knight here on f4. Knight takes e2, queen takes e2, and now f5. And here Jorden van Foreest finds a very nice defensive setup, nice defensive tactics. He found the move h3. If you take, of course, it doesn't bring you so much. You have lost the advantage of the bishop pair. Now this bishop can play on an active square, bishop to e3, or we have even the possibility to play rook to e1. Try to find a better square for a knight, maybe knight to e2, maybe knight to g3 in some occasions. So this is playable for white, and it's much better, because we don't have any more the threats of the bishop pair. So that's why here h3, you have to play bishop to h5, and now Jorden van Foreest played the move g4. This is a very, very nice move, because it leads now into a very simplified variation, which white of course likes, because you want to simplify the position. You're a pawn up. When you're pawn up, you don't want to have any complications. After f takes g4, here we have this intermediate attack, knight to g5, with the preparation to play sort of a blocking system on the square e4. And of course you cannot take, your bishop is hanging on h5, so that's why queen to d7 was played. If you try something like bishop to g6 here to escape, then I think knight to e5 is perfectly fine. If you attack the knight, we can still support the knight with the move f4. After queen to h4, we have queen to g2, and after trades of pieces here on e5, after rook to c5, bishop to f4, I think solves all of the problems of white here. And now in the next move, we can even try bishop to g3, here creating some rook activities on the e file. So I think this is simply playable. Or we can even try g takes f5 and somehow maybe fix our knight on the square e4. So you see, Magnus had to take here, f takes g4. After knight to g5, we have queen to d7, and now a very nice move, knight to d4. The threat is, of course, first to take the bishop on d6, and then here the pawn on g4. So that's why Magnus attacked here, bishop to e7, but now knight to g3, attacking the bishop, bishop to g6, and now finally queen to g4. Offering the trades of queens. Now you see Jorden van Foreest has accomplished the position in which it's a simplified variation now, because the queens will be off the board. After queen takes g4, we have h takes g4, and now c5. And now, of course, knight to e4. This is a very important positional move, fixing the position in the center, creating sort of a blocking system, not allowing this pawn to push forward. But the more important thing is that after the move c4, this light square diagonal for the bishop is not so dangerous, so you have to close the dark square diagonal with the move knight to e4 like Jorden van Foreest did, and now knight to c6. If you play the move c4 here, immediately it's a mistake because you get bishop to d2, a counterattack against the knight. If you play knight to c6, then we can simply take another pawn, not a problem, and in the next move we can try bishop to c3 and control here this very important square d4, or also this very important square b4. So in the game, knight to c6 played by Magnus, and now finally bishop to e3, developing now all of the pieces, connecting the rooks, and now Magnus played knight to d4. Here rook from a to c1 was played, protecting this pawn on c2. Taking the knight immediately is not so good, I think, because after c takes d4, here there is one problem. You have the backward pawn here on c2, so the c file is open for the rooks. You have to use many pieces in order to defend it. If you try something like c4, then d takes c3, b takes c3 is possible, but now rook to b8, the rook comes very actively into the game. We can even try here to occupy this second rank, and in the next move we can also try to attack here this c3 weakness or this d3 weakness. So many attacking possibilities here for black. So that's why one of the best ways here for Jorden van Foreest is to keep it compact somehow, keep it glued together. In the game, rook from a to c1 was played, not further weakening the pawn structure with some pawn moves like b3 or c3. In the game, Magnus played rook to c8, and this was again maybe a slight inaccuracy by Magnus. Maybe a better way is to proceed here. Rook from f to b8, attacking the pawn after something like b3. Bishop to e4 is really dangerous here. There is now this tactical shot. After knight takes e4, you cannot take with knight because here you get the fork, knight to e2, and you lose the rook. So that's why you have to take it with the pawn. D takes e4, and now a5 is very dangerous. With if you try c3, then we have knight to e6, and in the next move we can try here really this minority attack with these two pawns, with the support of these rooks, with the support of the bishop. So I think Magnus can go for a draw here. In the game, Magnus played rook from a to c8, and now king to g2, played by Jorden van Foreest, and now we have c4. Now finally Magnus cracks the position, and here bishop takes d4 was played. The importance about this move is to control also the b3 square. In the game, after bishop to d4, e takes d4, and now f3, even further fixing the position. Here we're trying really to create sort of a blocking system. This bishop is basically out of the game because of these two knights. These knights are very well placed. What we want to do maybe is to improve the position of this knight, knight to e2, attacking maybe the pawn on d4. In the game, rook to c6 was played by Magnus, trying to double up rooks. And if the position opens on the c file, then to create this very dangerous attack on the c file. So here Jorden van Foreest played the move b3, which is a correct move, because now you have to do again something. If you trade off the pawns, then I think we can simply take and open the c file. If you try to double up rooks here, I think you can simply trade off at least one of these rooks and play something like rook to f2 and protect our a2 weakness, and try maybe to find again some good squares for the knight. Or you can also immediately attack here this pawn on d4. If rook to c2, we have rook to f2, and again this pawn is very endangered. So after this move b3, now comes the critical moment, I think, in the game. Bishop to a3 was played by Magnus Carlsen, attacking the rook, and here Jorden van Foreest played the move of rook to e1. But there is now, I think, a better way. You can try here, I think, to even let Magnus take your rook, but get a pawn again. Here Jorden van Foreest had the opportunity to play, instead of this move d takes c4, immediately taking the pawn. After bishop takes c1, rook takes c1, and something like rook to d8, we have rook to d1. And I'm not seeing a clear way how these rooks will come into the game, because we have created this perfect blockade with these two knights. Now we have the opportunity to push f4, f5. These are really serious threats here. So in the next move you can try maybe something like king on f7, but now c3 is very dangerous. If you try to take, knight takes e4, and now after d3 we can simply move our king. Black has to defend here the pawn, but now we have a really annoying pawn storm here. We have a 4 versus 1 situation on the queen side. I'm not sure how these two rooks will stop this pawn storm. So I think Jorden van Foreest had some better opportunities here, but in the game he decided to play the passive move, rook to e1, and now Magnus has really a drawish position because he simply took out c takes d3, we have c takes d3, and now a5. Now Magnus is trying even further, even giving up some pawns, but just to get these rooks into the game, trying some dangerous attacks on the second rank. And here rook to f2 was played by Jorden van Foreest. Here is a problem. F4 seems like a good move. It seems like a tempting move because in the next move you can try something like f5, but now you get rook to c2. You see how dangerous this Magnus tactic is that he has prepared here. If you try rook to e2, you see you cannot of course cover with this one, because if the rook takes, king takes, now you lose your f pawn. So if you take with the knight, again the same position, so you have to cover it here with after the move rook to c2, you have to cover it with rook to e2, but now you get bishop to e4, attacking the king, and there is one problem. If you take out with the knight, we can simply of course take the rook, so that's the problem. If you take with the pawn, then d3 is a serious threat. Now you have to react with the rook, and there is one problem. If you take here d takes c3, and now in the next move we can even promote here to queen. You can try maybe something like knight to e2, but now there is this problem. We can try rook to d1, d8, pardon me, and with the preparation to play rook to d1, and I think it would be a lost game for white. So tricky stuff that Magnus has prepared here. So that's why rook to f2 played by Jorden van Foreest, covering the second rank. But now Magnus comes very actively into the game with bishop to c1. Now Jorden van Foreest tried this knight to d2 idea because he's leaving now his pawn hanging, but in order to get this knight again into the game, bishop takes d3, knight to c4 was played, and now bishop to f4. If you take bishop takes c4, here we have rook to c1. If you try to play bishop to d5, here we can simply take it. Now knight to f5 is very dangerous for black because I think black will lose the pawn in the next couple of moves. You can try maybe rook to d8, but this is not a problem because you get knight to e7 and you lose the bishop. So you have to do something else. You have to play something like, I don't know, bishop to a8, but now we can play even king to g3. We don't have to immediately take the pawn. We'll take the pawn anyway in one particular moment of the game. So I think this is a simply better endgame for white. So that's why after the move knight to c4, you see Magnus played bishop to f4, getting this bishop on an active square. Now knight to e5, we have rook to c3, knight takes d3, rook takes d3, and now knight to f5. We have g6, we have the counter-attack also by Jorden van Foreest, rook to e4, bishop to g5, and now knight to e7. We have king to h8, and now knight to c6, attacking the pawn. And in this here particular position, Magnus played bishop to e3, fixing the position, protecting this pawn on d4. Rook to e2 was played, and now rook to d1 with the preparation to play a very dangerous attack on g1. Knight takes a5 was played, but now rook to g1, we have king to h2, and now rook to c1, and we have some perpetual checks. And in this position, both of players decided to go for a draw here. But there is one problem. If you try here maybe knight to c4 to defend, now you get bishop to f4. This is the problem. And if you try king to g2, d3 again is this dangerous move. So you see Jorden van Foreest has to go for a draw here. If you try rook to f2, then rook to d8 is very dangerous. This pawn is rolling. This pawn is a problem. So I'm not sure how White should handle this pass pawn of black. So that's why here, as said, the knight on c4 wasn't played here. King to g2 was played, and perpetual moves were played by both sides. And after 3 perpetual positions, the game was ended in a draw. Okay, great game, I think, by Jorden van Foreest. Also, he missed, I think, this opportunity to sacrifice the exchange for this pawn storm. I would love to see this particular position, how Magnus would have defended in that particular line. But okay, congratulations to Magnus. He has broken now the world record. I think it's a great thing. We'll see now how Magnus will play much more freely, I think, in the tournament, because I think it's really an important thing to him. It would be an important thing for me, at least I think so, because this is something that will be written in chess books for many years, and I'm not sure when this Magnus Carlsen record will be broken, because this is really a huge accomplishment, playing all the time against 2800 rated players, and he hasn't lost a game. Great stuff. Congratulations to Magnus, and I'm really looking forward to see what he's going to do in the continuation of the tournament. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game. Meanwhile, you can watch my other commented chess games from the series, and you can also watch my best chess games of all time if you want to see the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.